Hello guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Jesper and today we are going to talk a little bit about alpha-hydroxy-acids, so the AHAs that I guess you've heard a lot about if you are a little bit into skincare. So that's what we are talking about on this channel here. So today we are talking about some of the different sorts of or types of alpha-hydroxy acids that you can meet when you go out shopping for a cream or a serum or something like that. And one of them I'm pretty sure you have heard about is this one here, and that is a lactic acid, so from milk. And that is one of those that you might have heard about when Cleopatra, she was taking her milk bath. I think it was goat milk or something like that. The idea was that she was actually using lactic acid in order to stimulate her skin to be glowy and nourished and lovely in all sorts of ways. And there are other things in milk as well you can use on your skin that will make your skin really nice and good. But I would say if you are just using milk on your face, you might not get that much lactic acid. So maybe if you are using some sour milk, it might be a little bit more that you got. But we have this one here, so lactic acid, and there are other types. So there is something called tartaric acid, and you have maybe you haven't heard about tartaric acid. It's not something that you hear about a lot, but it is usually used in products where you have lactic acid, which is a stronger acid than tartaric acid, in order to sort of make the lactic acid a little bit more buffered, so kind of like keeps the pH that you want in a product. Another thing you can add is something like a citric acid, and that is a little bit different than lactic acid or the tartaric acid you have here. And the reason is that this one here, if you are using that on your skin, it might be a little bit tough because it is way more acidic. And one of the things that makes these things here acidic is, or what is actually making it acidic, is the carboxylic acid that is on these ones here, and there are 3 on this one here, and there's only 1 on this one here. So therefore the citric acid is much more potent, and if you are using too high concentration of it, it most likely will irritate your skin, so you would not really like to do that. Now citric acid is sometimes listed on a product, and particularly at the bottom, so there isn't that much in it, and that is because it is also used as a preservative, so it can be used like that as well. So these AHAs, they have different uses. Something else you might have heard about, and I'm pretty sure you have if you are into skincare, because something like glycolic acid, like in this product here, this is from nip+fab exfoliate, they promise it to do, and they call it glycolic fix serum, and I have already made a review on that one, and you can see it up here. So glycolic acid, that is one of the first AHAs that was kind of like used in skincare, and when they have tested it and found out what it actually did to the skin, they realized that it makes your skin shed dead skin cells, so you will have a nice and glowy skin underneath. But something else that glycolic acid also does is that it actually stimulates the skin to produce more collagen. So that is obviously a nice thing, but obviously you need a certain amount, and it is so that the more you use, the more you will stimulate your skin to produce a collagen. So if that is something you would like to stimulate, then you need to use it kind of like every day. But I would say if you're using too high a concentration, that might annoy your skin. So I would say that in a product like this, they have obviously adjusted it so that it is nice and good around your skin's own pH, which is kind of like a 5 or 5.5 or something in that range. So in order to not annoy your skin, but it also means that a product like this will act more slowly because you have the acidic version of glycolic acid, and then you have the unacidic, so the one that is proteinized and the one that isn't. So it kind of like the one that is on the acidic form will penetrate your skin, and yeah, it'll kind of like work like that. So that is the way that they are doing these time release formulas. They are actually buffering the pH, so it's not as acidic. So if it was very acidic, all the acid would actually penetrate your skin really quickly, and therefore if you have a solution that is very acidic, then you don't want a very high concentration of the acid in the solution. So kind of like if you are taking something that is a 5% lactic acid serum, for example, and you are comparing it to something that is only a 2%, then you would actually have the 2%. If it is unbuffered, it will sink into your skin quicker and do maybe a bit more damage if you have very sensitive skin, compared to one that is actually a 5% one, because that would usually be buffered with something like a sodium hydroxide. So that is something you will often find when you're looking in the ingredients list. You will find sodium hydroxide in order to buffer a product. So I have another one here, and that is lactic acid. So in a product from the INCI-list, which we have here, they have this one, so you can use lactic acid if you would like to use that on your skin. So what does lactic acid do? Well, this one here, I have tried that one and made a review on it, and you can see that up here as well. Lactic acid is less potent than the one you have here, which is glycolic acid. You just have a look at it. And the reason is that glycolic acid is a smaller molecule than lactic acid is. So what happens is actually that something like you have here, like the glycolic acid, that will penetrate your skin much deeper than something like the lactic acid that we have here. And what that also means is that, and I will link to an article about that, you can read yourself here below. What it means is that when you are using a lactic acid on your skin, you will still have some sort of collagen stimulation, so that your skin will produce a bit more collagen. But because lactic acid does not penetrate the skin as well as this one here, like a glycolic acid, then glycolic acid will actually stimulate your skin to produce more collagen than if you are just using a lactic acid. And that is if you just think about it, if you have something that penetrates your skin much deeper than something else, then obviously what is penetrating your skin deeper will act more potently. So kind of like in that sense. But what also is a difference between glycolic acid and, for example, the tartaric acid that we have here, is that tartaric acid is much larger than lactic acid that we have here, and the glycolic acid here. And what it means is that the more these things are penetrating your skin, the more they are kind of like working on shedding dead skin cells and building a collagen. But the larger the molecule is, the more it will stay on the surface of the skin. And what will happen there is that your skin will actually be stimulated to produce something called ceramides. And you might have heard about the ceramides when you're going looking for a cream. And that is because ceramides are what is on your skin naturally in order to keep in moisture. So if your moisture barrier is not working well, most likely there is something wrong with how much is being produced of ceramides. And something that can happen if your body is not producing enough ceramides is that it will produce a lot of sebum instead. So apparently for the body it's easier to produce sebum than it is to produce ceramides. And if you have a lot of sebum going on your face, you will have most likely full-blown acne and stuff like that. So that can be really problematic. But something that ceramides will do is actually that it will be less problematic than a sebum, and it will protect your skin, so it will keep in moisture, and that is something you will like in order to make your skin produce less sebum. So it is all of it very complicated, but there are these various acids here. So there are lactic acid and there are tartaric acid, and what I do, if you have seen some of my other videos, is that I make my own serums, because serums, they can be very expensive. And what I do is that I simply take lactic acid here, and I make a 2% unbuffered solution that I will keep sometimes in the fridge, sometimes not, but I will just keep it for maybe 10 days or a week or something like that, and then I will make something new. So basically, if you keep it in the fridge, you might not need to use any sort of preservative in it, but you can do that. You can use one of these ones that are often used, and that is kind of like a phenoxyethanol. You can use that. So tartaric acid, I add that to the lactic acid solution, and I use 2% of that as well, and that is just simply to keep the pH more where I would like it to be, because these acids can kind of like fluctuate a little bit in the pH range, so they can be a little bit difficult to deal with. So that is often why something like the citric acid is also used in order to keep a certain pH. So yes, this was a little talk about how the AHAs, they can work for your skin. They do work in a very different way compared to which one you are using. So it is so that the larger the molecule is, so if you're using something like a tartaric acid compared to the glycolic acid, then it is much more safe on skin that is a little bit prone to being sensitive and so on. So if you have sensitive skin, glycolic acid is not what you should reach for in the first instance. Then you should go for something that is maybe just a tartaric acid, as we have here, but as that is a little bit difficult to come by when you are using something that you are buying off the shelf, then usually it will be maybe better to take something that is a lactic acid but in a very mild concentration, or maybe something called a mandelic acid, or some of the other acid like malic acid. There is something about mandelic acid which you might have heard about as well, and that is it is said to be a little bit more oil soluble, and some will say that actually it stimulates your skin to produce more oil. I'm not quite sure about that. I would say that I would expect it to stimulate your skin to produce more ceramides, but one thing about why it could be that it is more oil soluble compared to the other acids is that it contains a aromatic ring, and that is what could maybe be that it is more willing to mix with oil, but it is soluble in water as well, or primarily. So yes, these AHAs, they are working very differently on your skin, and that is basically because they look different, though they are all AHA, so they are all alpha-hydroxy-acids. So yes, this was a little talk about alpha-hydroxy-acids. So if you'd like to see more of this sort of videos, please subscribe, hit the bell, and do other things you must do not to be notified when I upload more of this sort of videos. Thank you for watching. See you. Bye.